subscribe to our videos so that more people can hear the Word of God.
Good morning and welcome to 5 Minutes a Day with God. And we are covering a difficult part this week. We're talking about the crucifixion of Jesus. And so today we're going to look at John 19, 5 through 16. And this is where Jesus finally gets condemned. That's the judgment for crucifixion. So they're finally saying, okay, now you can crucify him. So Pilate was trying everything that he could to get Jesus and not to be crucified, but we'll see a little bit more of that in this passage. So I will pick up at verse 5 to 16. When Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe, Pilate said to them, "Here is the man." As soon as the chief priests and their officials saw him, they shouted, "Crucify, crucify." But Pilate answered, "You take him and crucify him. As for me, I find no basis for a charge against him." The Jewish leaders insisted, "We have a law, and according to that law, he must die because he claimed to be the Son of God." When Pilate heard this, he was even more afraid, and he went back inside the palace. "Where do you come from?" he asked Jesus, but Jesus gave him no answer. "Do you refuse to speak to me?" Pilate said. "Don't you realize I have power either to free you or to crucify you?" Jesus answered, "You would have no power over me if it were not given to you from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin." From then on, Pilate tried to set Jesus free, but the Jewish leaders kept shouting, "If you let this man go, you are no friend of Caesar. Anyone who claims to be a king opposes Caesar." When Pilate heard this, he brought Jesus out and sat down on the judge's seat at a place known as a stone pavement, which is in Aramaic is Gabbatha. It was the day of preparation of the Passover. It was about noon. "Here is your king," Pilate said to the Jews, but they shouted, "Take him away, take him away, crucify him." "Shall I crucify your king?" Pilate asked. "We have no king but Caesar," the chief priests answered. Finally, Pilate handed him over to be crucified. All right, so here's Pilate, and where it says, when he says the statement, "Here's the man," again, he's presenting Jesus, and Jesus is bloodied, right? Every part of Jesus is probably dripping with blood. You can see the wounds on his body, and this thorn of crowns is on his head, so he's dripping with blood. He has a mocked robe on, a purple robe, and again, he is trying to appease the crowd. He's trying to get some kind of sympathy, and the irony here is that Pilate was not a kind man. That's the thing. He was not a good guy. He was known for being ruthless. He was known for being difficult. He was known for, being evil, basically. And so that's why the religious leaders were happy that Pilate was, that Jesus made it to Pilate's steps, so to speak, because they thought this man is not a compassionate man. He's going to do what we want. So if you think about that, here's this man who usually has no compassion, but he is able to see clearly that Jesus is innocent and he wants no part in this. So he keeps trying to get things at the crowd, to appease the crowd. He tried to release Jesus instead of Barabbas. That didn't work. So he had him flogged so that they would maybe be appeased with the fact that at least he was beaten. But no, it was a nothing. So then the religious leaders shouted and said, "Crucify him." And think about that pure hatred of God. That's what's here. That's what's shown here, is that they hated God so much. They hated this God that Jesus presented, because it took away their power, it took away their control, it showed the sin. It revealed the sin in them, and they didn't want any part of that God. And there was hatred there. So again, for the third time, I mean, at this point, you kind of feel a little sorry for Pilate. He's trying, right? And so at the third time, Pilate is like, I find no fault in him. He is innocent. But then they showed their hand, right? They showed their hand. Their true charge against Jesus is they wanted him dead because he claimed to be God. And this scared Pilate because he saw something in Jesus that he thought could be God, right? And so that scared him. But again, he was afraid to stand up against the mob. So then Pilate goes back to Jesus and he's like, give me something, right? Give me something that I could release you. And Pilate asks a question, and who are you? Like, what is going on? Why do they hate you so much, basically? And Jesus doesn't answer. And then Pilate says, you better answer me. Like, don't you know who I am? I have power over you. I can release you, or I could have you condemn. And then Jesus says the truth, right? Which is the power that Pilate wouldn't have the power unless God allowed him to have that power. That this was God's plan for Jesus to die for us. And there was nothing that Pilate could do. But then what happens is Pilate still tries to release him. And then this is where the crowd basically pins Pilate to the wall, right? As they said, if you release him, you are no friend of Caesar's. And Pilate, he knew that his power was pretty weak because his power was linked to the fact that he married Caesar's granddaughter. And so if Caesar wasn't pleased with Pilate's decision, then that could take away his power. So that's finally then Pilate gave in and announced him to be crucified. So if we're honest, there's a lot of Pilate in us, right? We might try to do the right thing, but ultimately maybe we could be bought, right? We try to follow Jesus, but then, following Jesus means I can't marry that person, or I can't do this job because it's unethical. I don't know if I want to follow Jesus, really, right? Like, there's a cost. Like, we might try on the outside to look good or try our best, but we also don't want to be completely vulnerable. We also don't want to let go of our power. And that's the bottom line, what happened with Pilate. So just think about that today. All right, have a good day, and we'll see you tomorrow. And remember, 5 minutes in the Word can change your life.